Who's the guy out there in the free agent market that you think the Celtics have a legitimate shot at actually signing, or a guy that they could trade for that they can make a move for? Who's someone that is an actual legitimate, realistic possibility for them?
For a trade or free agency?
Anything.
I mean,
acquisition.
Put aside Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I think we're talking no Kevin Durant.
I mean, I think you look at guys in situations that are changing, like Jimmy Butler, Blake Griffin, James Harden, DeMarcus Cousins, even though he just said he wants to stay and be a lifer in Sacramento. I mean, guys like that in situations where things are moving and a star player could be on a move, or an organization might prefer to have a top draft pick and a player like an Avery Bradley type or another young player, future draft picks. Situations like that, I'd focus on those and try to avoid stable situations. Just focus on teams that just got eliminated from the playoffs early or didn't even make the playoffs.
So what are the odds that Jimmy Butler is a Celtic next season? I'm putting him at like 5-1 odds, really.
I'm going to say like 5 to 35 odds.
I don't know what that means, but
it's 1 in 7.
Sounds like I'm losing a lot of money.
It's 1 in 7. I was just picking random numbers. I think there's a good chance because the Bulls situation seems kind of messed up right now, and I think him and Jay Crowder, they're Golden Eagle friends from Marquette. I think they would work well together. The one guy that I don't think has been talked about, who's I'm pretty sure unrestricted free agent, is playing down in Charlotte right now, is Nick Batum. I think he'd be a very good fit here. I think you could slide Crowder up to the 4 and have a very good starting lineup with Bradley, Batum, Crowder, and Isaiah Thomas, and whoever else you're going to throw in there. Another target I would like is, we saw him here tonight, Al Horford. I think he would work very well in the Brad Stevens system of being kind of an outside shooter, and we saw the rim protection he provides. But who knows? I feel like both those guys are likely just sign with the current teams they're on, and we'll end up with someone crappy like Harrison Barnes.
Now, if let's say the Celtics signed Horford and Batum to max contracts, would that be an effective use of their cap space? Would that set them up, for a big trade someday? I mean, would that be enough, right?
No. I think if you added Horford and Batum to this team, they're immediate contenders in the East. I think that team could challenge the Cavs in the East. I don't know if they're immediate championship contenders, but if you don't change the current roster whatsoever and only add those two guys, I think the team becomes an elite team in the league. And I think why not? I don't think you could say like you might be wasting money on the contract and 4 years down the line, but I think they could actually have a legitimate chance of going for it, so why not?
Now, with Horford, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. Do you think his age should play into the factor? And
Batum's right around the same age, yeah.
Should that play a role in their decision making? Because everybody in this team, the core is in the 22 to 26 range. Is adding a 31-year-old big man maybe a bad long-term decision, or is it he can be a centerpiece? He's a leader. He's a proven vet. I mean, he's someone that you might have to add to the team.
Are you trying to make deals to win championships now, or are you trying to kind of do small growth so you can win the championship in 2020? It depends on your strategy and what becomes available. It feels like if you have cap space now and those guys want to come, then at some point you're going to have to pull a trigger on one of these deals. At some point you're going to have to trade away one of the players you really like, because in order to get something, you have to give up something. So it's either going to be your cap space or it's going to be one of the young players. I don't know. That's why I'm not a general manager. But it's a hard decision to make. So I'm just going to be here to second guess anything that happens.
Well, listen, so it depends how the traffic plays out. But if they could sign Horford and Batum, and they're still able to add another top-level talent, whether it's through trading that draft pick or by drafting somebody, I think that works out pretty nicely there. Mm-hmm. But the timeline is clearly messed up there. And the thing is, with you have a starting lineup of Isaiah Thomas, Avery Bradley, with Marcus Smart coming off the bench, I assume still, Nick Batum, Jay Crowder, Al Horford. I'm not sure if that team can technically shoot the 3-ball well enough to really be good enough to get past. I mean, honestly, they could probably get out of the East. There's a good chance that a team like that could get out of the East, although they still would not be as good as Cleveland or whatever the situation with LeBron is next year. But I don't see that team being able to beat some of the elite teams out, or at least the top 3 teams out in the West Coast.
Yeah, and that's kind of an issue I have with Horford. I mean, I love Horford as a player. I think he's awesome. But at the same time, he's not necessarily a knockdown 3-point shooter.
But what fives are you going to get who offer the same amount of rim protection?
Very few. I think he's probably the ideal 5 you could get besides Draymond Green really right now.
100%. But I mean, if you're spending all your cap, 2 max contracts on Batum and Horford,
it's not the guys to do it
you
with.
still need to add shooting elsewhere, or else you're going to have another year like over the last 3 years, the Celtics ranked 29th in three-point percentage. Like they need to be better shooting threes.
I mean, the closeout game, they almost had the worst three-point shooting performance of the last 30 years for this franchise. They're gonna have to find another way to get a better.
What
shooter.
shooters right now are on the market or are available who are going to be potential people the Celtics could sign this offseason?
Yeah, really, just Kevin
There's
Durant.
Kevin Durant, but
Harrison
then
Barnes.
I'm assuming
and
I would much rather
Ryan
have Nick
Anderson,
Batum.
who I think everyone's a little shaky on how much you want to pay him right now.
Jared Dudley.
And then Jared Dudley, yeah, that's the only.
There's players who are shooters, though, but if you want to bring in a complete player, I think Batum and Horford are kind of guys who can give you a little bit of shooting and a lot of everything else. I think it would be odd just to target people who can only shoot, or someone like Ryan Anderson. I feel like Brad Stevens appreciates people who are, one, versatile, and two, complete players who play both on offense and defense. So I feel like I'm all in on Batum and Horford.
No, your team's a good team. And
Absolutely.
I like that, and you could do really well with them, but I don't think that's a team that wins a title. I think that's a team that gets pretty close to winning a title.
I just fear at some point you're holding out every single trade is like, well, this isn't going to make us the immediate title contender, and then it's 2022 and you're screwed because Isaiah Thomas is old, Jay Crowder hasn't lived up to it, Marcus Smart is old, and you just missed your window because you kept on waiting for that perfect deal. Eventually, you're going to have to make a move and try to go for it, and it's hope that Brad Stevens can coach them into a championship.
Will Marcus Smart ever get old? Will that happen?
Games like
I feel like he'd be like 29
in
in that year, right? He'd be pretty close, right around this prime there, yeah. So yeah, carry the three, and then
I have a question of something that's been on my mind.
Okay,
a lot
let's do this last. It's been long. Let's do the last one.
Let's say the Celtics sign Kevin Durant. Let's just say they sign him. And let's say they also had the number 1 pick and they took Ingram or Simmons. It really doesn't matter. Would the Celtics be better off trading that player, Ingram or Simmons, for a star like Blake Griffin or Jimmy Butler? Or would they be better off keeping that player and using like their cap space to fill the gap that they have with their cap for, a guy like a Horford or a Batum? Would they be better off, going for like all the stars, like building the super team, or like doing what Cleveland did? Cleveland would be better now if they kept Andrew Wiggins instead of trading for Kevin Love. I mean, would the Celtics possibly be making a mistake if they added Griffin or Butler?
That's it. So not Butler, but Griffin is kind of the only guy you really or Cousins. I think Griffin and Cousins are the two guys you're looking at. I don't really think they would do Butler because I'm assuming Jay Crowder's still here, and it's kind of hard to have Kevin Durant, Jay Crowder, and actually not really. Jimmy Butler's so good, I guess you could do that.
Take Crowder at the 5. Go crazy, Bones.
It's true.
I can't wait until a team does that. Besides the Warriors. The Warriors do it. Oh, everybody else should do it if they have the players that can. But.
So I honestly, it didn't work as well with Cleveland as I think. Well, let's rephrase. Right now, we don't know because honestly, Cleveland could win the title this year. Kevin Love could be freaking amazing.
But they're not like Studley every night.
That's true. But Miami, Chris Bosh looked like a huge mistake at first. And people thought they made a mistake not getting Amari, and then it was very apparent the next few seasons that Chris Bosh was the perfect guy to sign there.
Yeah.
Just took him a year to figure it out. Same thing with Dwayne Wade. He didn't really have it figured out that first year. Cleveland, Miami was pretty clear during the regular season the second year. Cleveland, not so much. But they don't have Pat Riley looking over their shoulders. And frankly, Eric Spoelstra is a better coach than the guys they've had in Cleveland so far. Although David Blatt obviously can get a second chance there. But Blake Griffin's a different player than Kevin Love. Blake Griffin, I think, is a guy that you can't really take him out of his element like they were able to take Kevin Love out of his element. And I think they're still going to let him play his game even more so. And then DeMarcus Cousins, he's going to play the exact same game in Boston that he was playing in Sacramento. So I think he wouldn't have to adjust his game nearly as much as Kevin Love did. And it could work better with those guys. And DeMarcus Cousins is definitely young enough that it's worth doing it. And then Blake Griffin, I think, is, 26 now?
Yeah, he's young, 27,
yeah,
something
but
like
there's
that.
been some injury concerns, which is, I think, the other big issue.
That's part of it.
Although, frankly, he would have been healthy this year if he just didn't punch a wall. It would have been a problem. But, you get DeMarcus Cousins, and it works out with him. You've got the best player in the league on both ends, really, at his position, or one of the two or three.
I think you add Kevin Durant to this team right now, and they're immediate title contenders. Definitely. I see no reason to kind of change that up. You still have max cap room. I don't think you need to go and add another max player for that. I say you would keep the draft pick and you try to put some quality role players in there who maybe add some shooting, maybe add some rim protection. You just go ahead with the current core and Kevin Durant. and you bring up that young player off the bench, whoever it may be, Simmons or Ingram, and have them develop where they're not like expected to do a bunch because they're actually playing with a bunch of stars. Because I have a pretty like strong belief in like the talent of this young core, as long as they're not like relied on to be the superstars, as long as Isaiah Thomas is not your best player. But right now they have a very good 4 through or 2 through 5 or whatever the numbers are. And I think if you add Kevin Durant to that, you can use the rest of your cap space to go after kind of those bit players like a James Posey, Eddie House type.
Yeah.
And you don't need that other star, because I think Kevin Durant, with the current players they have, they doesn't need another player to give the ball. You'd have to give a bunch of things up to kind of go get someone like Blake Griffin or DeMarcus Cousins. I don't think it'd be worth it. So
that's exactly kind of how I feel about it. I mean, I've thought about it. I've kind of went through scenarios in my head, and I think long term it might be best for the Celtics, I mean short term and long term, to, if they get the number 1 pick and if they were to sign Kevin Durant, to keep the player, because Kevin Durant won't be Kevin Durant forever, right? I mean, if in 5 years, 6 years, he may be a little bit of a shell of his former self, right? He might not be able to create offense like he does now, but maybe at that point, Ben Simmons or Brandon Ingram or whoever it is can be a guy. I'm not a big Jamal Murray guy, but whoever it is, I mean, insert player X here. Whoever that guy is might be ready to take on a superstar role. And instead, like if you have an older Kevin Durant 6 years from now, maybe you're struggling a little bit to find your next guy because you have picks 20 to 30 every single year. But if you have that guy in your back pocket, that's young potential star player, maybe it's a little bit better. And to Sam's point, you might have like just too many guys. I mean, if you had, you had an all-star lineup of Blake Griffin, Al Horford, Kevin Durant, Avery Bradley, and Isaiah Thomas.
Then you're immediately going to have like Instagram stupid things like the Cavs are having right now.
There's one ball, and you have a guy that can go off every night, but at the same time, that doesn't always translate. I mean, remember with the big three, people never thought they would explode like they did. That was an extremely rare circumstance. It doesn't always work like it should or like it can. I mean, the Thunder should be better than they are in theory, but they're not. I mean, I think they should have probably won a championship by now, but they haven't. They haven't gotten to that level. Sometimes less is more. Filling in with like those James Posey's going to be a little bit better use of your cap space instead of having all-stars and a weak bench.
All right, well, that's going to be it for the Garden Report. We went really long with this. We'll probably split those up into 4 clips, honestly, just to make it more digestible. We're all exhausted here, so we're going to finish up here. Sam's going to rip his top off right now. I'm going to loosen the tie up here, too. So the draft lottery is a couple weeks away, or 3 weeks away, I guess. We'll definitely see you after that. We'll see if we can try to get even a little. Oh, watch out there. You're going to step on the mic. So before Sam dies here. So we want to thank everybody that has stuck with our show for all these years, continues to enjoy our show, and we've got on these crazy characters right here with their different hairstyles and different personalities and lack of respect for anything on this God's
It's a shirt! People are allowed to wear undershirts.
So here, I'll even show off my undershirt a little bit here too. So we want to thank Jeremy Karpf, who's behind the camera tonight, Kyle George, who's been behind the camera for the last few years.
Shout out to Kyle.
Go watch the Gino documentary. It's the dopest dope.
Check it out on Celtics.
Kyle was going to be back after doing a semester in LA for the next game, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So Kyle, we can't wait to have you back in rotation next year with Jeremy. But thank you to everybody. You can find Kevin on Twitter, Kevin O'Connor NBA. The White Black Frank White over here, Sam Packard NBA. Don't you dare say it. You can find me, Jared Weiss, at CLNS_Jared Weiss. So follow Celtics blog at Celtics blog, CLNS Radio at CLNS Radio. Jeremy, do you want me to say your Twitter on air? Do you even have
put it
one?
right here. Put it right here.
Put it right there. So thank you to
This
everybody.
is where you can follow him.
Right there.
And that's it. Leave a comment on the YouTube page. Let us know how you thought of the show. You hate it. It sucked. Whether we should never come back again or if we should be here every single night. And stay tuned because we'll have more updates on Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff. Thanks to all our sponsors this year. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the Garden crew for putting up with us sitting on the court at 2 in the morning filming our crap. We love everybody that supports our show. We can't thank you enough. From everyone from Boston to the Philippines, Australia, all around the world. Thanks to everybody, and we'll see you soon on the Garden Report.